Oh, that's new. All right. So, thanks for the warning. Okay, so hiring update. Conversation with the internal candidate continues, moving to the reference stage. Hopefully, we can put together a compelling offer and get going on that pretty soon. External candidate, I have reference checks set up for later, I think next week, actually. So, again, close. Hopefully, we can come up with a compelling offer and we'll have two new folks to join the team. Have other folks in technical interview stage. So things are looking good on the hiring front. The product manager starts next week on Monday, and they will be splitting time between distribution and memory. I'm not sure what the allocation per team will be, but yeah, we'll find out as time moves on. Let's see. So infrastructure escalation process. Memory team, we don't have any engineers that are eligible. You have to have been here at least 3 months and not be a distinguished engineer. So that effectively disqualifies everybody on the team. I'm not sure if QE folks are going to be involved in that grant. Have you heard anything about that?
No.
Okay.
uh, no. I'll pass this on to Tanya, see if she knows anything. I think we're typically on kind of different lists for that kind of stuff, for different triage,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
for QA test stuff. So probably not, but I'll double check.
Yeah. I think you're right. I don't think y'all are involved. So just read up on the process. It starts with volunteers, and then when we have gaps, we just need to start filling in the gaps. I don't think there's too much overhead. So, all right. Let's see. Reviewing 12.2. So 12.2 code freeze is effectively the 17th, which is later next week. Actually, it's next weekend. So just take a look at milestones assigned to you. If there's anything that we think will slip, then let's talk about it. We can move accordingly. There were only two issues when I looked this morning that were unassigned, and those were issues I think that were made up during this milestone. So if those need to move, it's not a big deal. I think those were owned by Camille, and we'll chat with him when he gets back. Any questions on that? Before we move on? Nope.
No.
Cool. So 12.3, we had the kickoff earlier this week. The main goal for our team is still Puma, getting it out in production. We have deployed to dev, we've deployed to ops. The next stages are staging, then Canary, then production. And the goal is to have it by the end of 12.3, which would be effectively September 22nd. So seems reasonable, but those are all dependent steps, right? Each stage depends on the previous stage being successful. So everything's looking good so far. We'll see. Hopefully, we don't run into any bumps in the road. Let's see. For 12.3, we have issues that span two different projects. So sadly, we have to look at two different boards, but they're set up and linked here. A lot of the Puma issues for deploying are on the infra board, and all of the rest of the stuff that we're working on is the milestone board that we regularly look at, which is here. If you haven't seen it before, that makes me sad. Let's see. There are some late breaking high priority issues that have come out. One of them just came out this morning, and I don't have any details for it yet, but based on the discovery of those two issues, so we have 4951, haven't seen it, overhead for our queues, and then there's a recently discovered issue where background processes are repeatedly getting created. It's causing issues that I need to take a look at right after this meeting and start getting people involved. That could offset everything we're doing for 12.3 and possibly even some of the stuff we're doing right now. So I need to gather some more information, and I'll get back to y'all and let you know what's going on.
Okay.
And then as for waiting, so last time around, we tried waiting everything in advance for 12.2, have everybody take a look at it. Got a lot of feedback that that wasn't the desired way to do it. So I think this time around, we'll try waiting as folks pick up the work. Part of the reasoning for that is we have weighted items that are in 12.3 that were weighted a couple weeks ago. And I found that when you point or weight something and then it sits there for weeks and even months, the value, it's really no longer relevant because new items could have come up, someone else could take it on. So we'll try something different this time. As you pick up an issue, wait it and let the team know that you've waited it and see if they have any questions or concerns. But you own the waiting for the issues that you pick up.
Sounds good.
Yep. All right. Let's see, the memory team retro. So our async retro process, a new issue is automatically created by the bot. It's out there as things come up throughout 12.2, as we still have a couple weeks to go here. Just start adding your thoughts like we did last time. I think we did a really good job last time of adding things as they were top of mind, and we had a lot of good conversation points on 12.2. And this time, we'll try and find a time that works to have a synchronous retro so we can talk about some of the topics. We weren't able to find a time due to vacations and other things that were going on. So we'll make an effort to have a synchronous retro this time after 12.2. And Grant.
Good.
Yeah, just a quick update from our end. The big thing we work on this week is switching up the framework and doing a big refactor because we found that the original tool that we're using, Artillery, is non-performant. It's actually, from what we've actually researched online, it's actually the second worst load testing tool in the entire industry. So that was a surprise to see that. And that with that comes a lot of actual extra noise. So actually what the comparisons found is that the tool was not only very good at actually doing performance testing, which is ironic, but it's also very bad at actually handling itself. It wasn't able to report correct figures and stuff the more pressure you put on it. So the numbers we'd be getting out actually seem to be incorrect or heavily inflated by a multiplier, I'd say. I think especially for the heavier endpoints, we saw Artillery reporting very high numbers, and I think now that's just because Artillery wasn't able to cope. So we'll be switching over to another tool called K6, which is much more recent and much more loved in the industry, and it's much more performant. To give some context, in the previous iterations, we had to run 10 separate runners of Artillery to get 200 responses per second into our biggest environment, which was ridiculous. That shouldn't be happening. 200 RPS is nothing compared to most other tools. So the new tool runs at 200 RPS in one runner. So what this means for the memory team is that the tool, once this is committed, which hopefully should be soon, you should start to see better and more consistent results from load testing an instance. We've also hooked up to Grafana, which is good. This is only for the K6 tool, though. It only reports on what it's seen in terms of test results. But it still shows some things. It tells you how slow endpoints are. And what will be interesting now is now we're starting to log that, at least on this Grafana instance, is that you can maybe go back and look at the trends for the last week, maybe, and stuff like that. So we're still kind of working on that. So once that's in, we'll let you know. But next week and the following weeks, we'll just be continuing to iterate in this as this big switchovers happened. So just want to call that out.
How much do we have invested already in Artillery that we'll have to rewrite into K6?
Well, it's already all done.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So the links down there are actually test results of K6. For that, it was about 3 days effort from my part.
Right on.
Give or take. It's still not finished yet. I've still got to write docs, but it was 3 days like full effort for the scripting and the redo and learning the tool and all that jazz. So.
I have a question. Does it mean that some of the issues needs to be updated? Because as far as I remember, some of the issues based on poor performance were created based on Artillery results, right?
So that's something that we will need to reevaluate. However, the one trick...
We probably need to review, some of them.
Well, we need to review... Well, when I say inflated, what Artillery was doing is Artillery was technically reporting stuff correctly, but it's just the numbers were just... It was miscalculating the numbers. So when it said there was a slow endpoint, that endpoint is slow. And it still is slow in K6. But what Artillery said was 60 seconds P95 for an endpoint. K6 has come back as, no, it's more like 5 seconds. But it's drastically bad. It really was. I was surprised by the differences in numbers, but I've double checked everything and everything is correct. And so Artillery is just really not good. That's the summary. But so the endpoints that we've called out that are slow are still slow, so those issues are still valid. I will need to update them with the right numbers. You're right, though. That's a good call. I'll take a note on that.
Yeah,
okay, good to know. Good to know.
Some of those endpoints that were called out, there were like 3 or 4, right? They were kind of on the scale you were talking about, like
They
if
were.
I remember right, like 40 some seconds on some of them. So if if K6 comes back and says it's more like 5 or 6, that might reprioritize some of the work that we need to do.
You could argue for that to be deprioritized. 5 seconds is still very slow for an endpoint.
It is
either. So that's a fair question, though. It's a fair thing to discuss. It's a 5 second endpoint the end of the world for a customer. Sid would probably say yes, but obviously things still need to be prioritized, and obviously Puma's the priority here.
Yeah.
I'd say so. Certainly the memory intensive endpoints, I think, probably have a double whammy to be prioritized higher. I know Camille's at least called a few of them out. I've not read it in the agenda, but I'm still waiting. I'm waiting for access to I get a Google Cloud group, which should give me access to the environments, the testbed environments, so Pre and Puma.
Mm-hmm.
With that access, I'm hoping to set up a proper Grafana instance. I've only got, this is what's just a temporary one I've created for now, and that will have access to a Prometheus server that itself, because of the way that Prometheus and Grafana works, I was hoping to have a system up now running, but I found that the Grafana doesn't really like playing with multiple Prometheus servers at once, especially many of them. It's really started just to act very weirdly. So I'm going to have it's called a federation. So I'm going to set up a new Prometheus server that collects the relevant metrics from the various environments, own Prometheus servers, centralizes it, and then Grafana can use that as well as the test results. So we should hopefully start. We're literally begging the infrastructure team to give me the access. They're taking their time for some reason. I don't know why, but Tanya's spotted them multiple times.
Is this,
once again, yeah.
Sorry, is this on the pre-Puma environments?
Is to get access to the testbed project, which I'm told should give me access to the pre and pre-Puma environments. We already have access. The problem is that Grafana and Prometheus need unauthentic. Well, they need clean access. Right now, you need to authenticate with your Google account, which obviously is no good for Prometheus and Grafana. So we need access to the right internal network essentially to extract what we need. And once that's out, then we'll hopefully start building up a dashboard that will actually start showing memory use, which is it should be helpful.
By the way, sorry to interrupt. Something to keep in mind that pre-Puma could be redeployed by kind of older release. I noticed that before Camille was on vacation, he updated it with my latest fixes. And after that, they put it with older release. So some fixes we made to metrics could disappear. So something to keep in mind, to check the help page and check the version. Because it was kind of rolled back from the custom configurations that was made by Camille. I don't know who is responsible for updating pre-Puma, by the way.
The good thing with the new script that I've written is that it actually pulls down the version. So in the test results, if you click on the Slack links there, they'll actually call it the specific version that the environment is running on. Pre and pre-Puma both running on, obviously because they're pretty much the same, are running on 12.1.4 Enterprise. There was an option there. I could add the reference number to it. Do you want the SHA added to that as well? Would that be useful for you?
I guess. I'm usually checking help, but
yeah, I mean we're just using the API to get the help of the environment, just to call out, because it can be confusing when we don't know what each environment is running. Certainly, I've commented on a few issues about that kind of thing recently, and I've said when the question's been asked about what about this environment, how should it be updated, I've said the same as each time. I said they should be updated automatically. It should be updating weekly, if not earlier, maybe daily, if that's possible, as much as reasonable possible. And if we do need to do a test against a specific version, then that's when we come in and manually, or with a tool, we pause it, refactor it to the right version, test it, and then bring it back up to latest, because we want to know what the latest version is reporting in terms of all of its metrics, memory, CPU, endpoint times, that kind of thing. So I hope the same is going to be the case with the two pre's as well. I say two, the same environment, but you know what I mean.
All right. Excuse me. Thanks, Grant.
No problem at all.
Let's see. So I'm gonna look to move the timing of this meeting. I'll try and find a spot that works for everybody. But this meeting conflicts for me with an ongoing meeting, so try and move it forward in the week. I prefer meetings earlier in the week. That way, if issues come up during the week, then you have that time to follow up on them, rather than having it like the last day of the week almost for some folks, and you kind of lose the context when you go into the weekend, come back on Monday. So try and move it to maybe Tuesday.
Tuesday is fine.
If there's a
Personally,
time that
for me,
works for
Tuesday is a bit better than Monday. But I guess you will announce the time, right? A bit before you make.
Okay. Yep. So I'll make sure it works on everybody's calendar as best I can. All right. So any blockers, anything wants to discuss? Anybody who wants to discuss for this? Anybody that's on this call?
Well, I put my notes in the channel. I guess that's enough. The bug I'm working on. So I already scheduled a meeting with Stan. So I hope we'll get something useful.
Cool. All right. I think that's it then.
All right.
Have a good day, everybody.
See you later.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.